Morning, all. All right, so we have 5 games in the NHL tonight. They start at staggered times. So if you like to watch as much hockey as you can, tonight's a good night to do that. And it's something I've been doing for a very long time. As soon as I had access to multiple different games from multiple different areas, I'd watch as many games as I could. And so maybe I was prepping myself for this job ages before I knew that would be an option. Anyways, starting at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, the Carolina Hurricanes in against the Washington Capitals. Washington's won all 3 games between these teams so far this year. This might be a first season preview as well, so then we can have the age-old discussion of does the regular season matter when it comes to a playoff series. A couple years back, the New York Rangers, very good in the regular season against Carolina. Carolina draws them in the play-in round and wiped them out in 3. So regular season doesn't necessarily matter that much, but for Washington, by beating Carolina tonight, they could possibly avoid playing Carolina in the playoffs. They still have visions, of course, of catching the top 3 in the division. So Washington wins November 28th, 4-2. They win March 3rd, 4-0, and March 18th, they win 4-3 in a shootout. So Washington's owned this series so far. For the Carolina Hurricanes, they're 43-15-7. Their last 10 games, they're 5-3-2. They won their last game. Away from home, they're 19-10-3. They're 3 points ahead of Pittsburgh and 4 points ahead of the Rangers. So though they should win the division, it's not a given at this point. And if you are a Penguins fan or a Rangers fan, who do you cheer for tonight? Do you want Washington to be closer, or do you want them to beat Carolina? I would think you'd want them to beat Carolina because you'd want to catch first, but it's got to feel odd cheering for the Capitals if you're a Rangers fan or a Penguins fan, right? On the Capitals side, they're 37-20-10. Their last 10 games are 7-2-1. They've won 2 in a row. They're 16-13-5 at home. They're 3 points behind Boston for the number 1 wildcard spot. They're 5 points behind the Rangers for third in the division. So we'll see how it goes. 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, the Vancouver Canucks continue their road trip, which has been a success thus far. They're in against the St. Louis Blues. On January 23rd, the St. Louis Blues win the meeting with Vancouver 3-1. The third meeting will be March 30th in Vancouver. And so for Vancouver, 32-26-9, 6 games above 500. Honestly, this is an interesting story with the Canucks right now. They're 4-3-3 in their last 10. They did win their last game against Dallas. And away from home, they're now 18-13-4. So that's a pretty good road record. Their home record isn't as great. But again, that all dates back to Travis Green. Before Travis got fired and after, the numbers have been completely different. Vancouver is 3 points back of Vegas for that last playoff spot, but they're also 2 points behind Dallas and 1 point behind Winnipeg. Keeping in mind Dallas has games in hand on everybody. So, St. Louis, 35-20-9. Their last 10 games have not been good. They're 3-4-3. They've lost 2 in a row. At home, they're 29-4. They're 1 point behind Nashville. They're 3 points ahead of the Vegas Golden Knights, which means they're 4 points ahead of Dallas above that playoff line. So the playoff line seems to be moving up in the West, which is good because there's going to be complaints at the end of the year about the difference between the West and the East and the disparity and all that. I do think that the teams in the West are excellent as well. And so I think it's going to be entertaining no matter which side of the playoff bracket you're following, if not both. 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, the first meeting of the year between Buffalo and Chicago. What's interesting with this one is Buffalo's season's seen as a success, Chicago's is not, and yet the records are almost identical. So that shows how the bar of expectations moves around. Buffalo, 23-33-10 on the season. Their last 10 games, they're 5-3-2. They lost their last 2 games in extra time. So they're making you work for it. Away from home, they're 11-17-5. They're 4 points behind the Red Wings and 3 points ahead of the Flyers. On the Chicago side, they're 24-32-10. So they have 1 less regulation loss and 1 more win. That's the only difference between the 2 teams. Last 10 games, they're 4-4-2. They lost their last game in extra time as well. At home, they're 11-16-5. They're 7 points behind Anaheim. They're 12 points ahead of Seattle. So they've got a nice gap now between themselves and Seattle. But the problem is that's the bottom of the West, as Seattle and Arizona linger at the bottom there. So we'll see how this one turns out. The second meeting between these teams will be on the final night of the season on April 29th. And then at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, the Arizona Coyotes and against the Edmonton Oilers. On October 21st, Edmonton wins 5-1. On November 24th, Edmonton wins 5-3. The Coyotes, 20-40-5. Last 10 games, they're 4-5-1. They lost their last game in extra time as well. A lot of games going to overtime right now. and that of course was in Winnipeg last night. Away from home, they're 11-18-4. They're 1 point behind Seattle. So they're right close to Seattle. On the Oilers side, 36-25-5. Their last 10 games are 6-3-1. They're coming off that humiliating defeat against Calgary. So the bad news for Arizona is they're on the second half of a back-to-back, and this should be an angry Oilers bunch that has already beaten them twice this year and is looking for the sweep. At home, the Oilers are 20-12 on the season. They're 4 points behind the Kings. They are 1 point ahead of Vegas, and they're 2 points ahead of the Dallas Stars above that playoff line. So we will see how this goes from here, but I do like the Oilers' chances tonight, of course. I end up going with the Hawks jersey because they're at home. They should have a bounce back from their last game against Vegas. And yeah, I really haven't worn Hawks hardly at all for previews, so I thought I'll give it a shot. 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern start time between Seattle and the LA Kings. LA's won both meetings. They won January 15th 3-1, and they won a couple of days ago in LA against this same team 4-2. So Seattle and back-to-backs in LA trying to reverse the trend here. The fourth and final meeting between these teams will be on April 27th. Seattle's now 20-39-6. Their last 10 games 4-5-1. They lost their last game against LA. Away from home, they're 9-21-3, and they're 1 point ahead of Arizona. The LA Kings are 36-22-9, and I thought about wearing their jersey for this preview, and I thought, well, where's the fun in that? Because that just looks like it's the easiest pick of the bunch. Same with the Oilers, and then I don't want to touch this one because I don't want to be seen as jinxing it, or either way, right? If I wear Canucks and they lose, then it looks like I jinxed it. If I wear St. Louis, it looks like I'm trying to jinx them, or maybe them against it. So, yeah. Went with, yeah. LA Kings, 5-3-2 in their last 10. They did beat Seattle their last game out. They're trying to repeat that tonight. They're 18-13-4 at home. They're 7 points behind Calgary. The division's probably too far in front of them, but they're 4 points ahead of Edmonton. So if you're a Kings fan, you're likely cheering for the Coyotes tonight and hoping that LA holds on and wins another one against Seattle so that they can get 6 points ahead of the Oilers. But we'll see. And I'm honestly liking some of the tight races that we're seeing in each division, because that's what makes the final weeks of the season fun. When everything's already decided, it's not as much fun. But let me know your thoughts and picks in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.